Today we're going to cover the basic features of the Tdesc Builder and browser by Lot51. This video won't go over making a mod, it will simply give you a comprehensive look at what the Tdesc Builder offers and where to find it. In another video, I'll go over making a mod editing an existing Sims 4 feature, and then in a third video, we'll try figuring out how to make something new. First off, up here this little sun icon will switch from light mode to dark mode. You probably want to be in dark mode, because light mode's terrible on every website. Starting off, this is the main page you'll see when you access the site. Clicking this button in the top left corner opens up a list of all the tuning classes in the game with a search bar. Clicking on a tuning class opens up additional subclasses if any exist. Contrib up here at the top is for things made by modders, like for use with injectors. We'll get into that in one of the later videos. Here in the middle are the main features of the builder. Open tuning or package will open this menu where you can, and you're not going to believe this, open tunings or packages. If you have loose XML files, you can open them here, or you can open entire packages. When you click on an entire package, you'll get this workspace button up on the left, which will show you the things that are inside the package. This is here twice simply because I opened it before I started the video. Remember, if you open this side tab with the button in the left corner, you can close it to give yourself more space to work on the right. Import EA tuning will open up a search bar where we can look for any tuning already in the game. Clicking on type lets you filter by tuning classes. Clicking on pack lets you filter by pack. So we can easily see every buff from a certain pack if we wanted to. In the search bar, you can use operators like and, not, and or to further define your search. So if you want to look for cat and buff, you have to put and in all caps in the middle, and it will show you every tuning in the game that contains the word cat and contains the word buff. Clicking on a result will open it on the right side of the screen. You can click import, which will add a new tab behind this window. If you look at the bottom here, it will tell you that the tuning is loading, and up here in the top right, there was a gear icon showing you that the site is working. Sometimes it can take a minute to open the tuning. If you click import and edit, you'll immediately leave this menu and be shown the new tuning instead. You'll notice up here that both tunings are now open because there will be tabs up here just like at the top of your browser. You can middle click a tab to close it just like in your browser. You can even right click to close other tabs. Once the tuning is open, click Tuning Builder up here at the top to go back to the main page to find the other options again. This won't lose your progress, the tabs will remain at the top of the screen. The Create from Template button helps you make new tuning using existing types of tuning, but with a template format so you know what kinds of basics you probably need. So if we click here on buff, these are all the things that are usually in a buff, outside of extra features, and are the bare basics that you might need for the buff to work. If you click here on the angry one, now we've got one that already has a mood and duration applied, which means that when we go in and check it out, we can see that this is already going to be set up as an angry buff that lasts for 2 hours. When you open tuning, specifically buffs, you'll get a preview up here of what it will look like once all the information is in. We'll go over that in another video, but just notice that this is here because it's a really cool feature. We used to have to load the game up to make sure that a buff was going to look right, and now as long as the information is all filled out right, you can see right here. Back on the main page, Search EA Strings opens up this menu where you can look through all the text in the game. Search EA Images does the same thing, but for images. In the Settings menu, you can adjust your creator name. When you make new tunings, this will be appended at the start of all of your tuning names, which is a common practice to ensure your tuning ID is unique. If you made a tuning with the same name as someone else, they would both have the same ID and overwrite each other. Having your name at the front prevents that. There's some visual options in here that you can probably leave alone, but if you want to adjust anything, feel free. Let's go back to one of the buffs. So what actually is a Tdesc? It's short for tuning description. The Tdesks are basically internal EA dev information outlining different things the game can do and how they work. With the Tdesc Builder, we can open any EA tuning and get tips on what the individual pieces of it actually do. Additionally, the builder also knows what certain types of tunings are even capable of, and will usually, but not always, only provide you with options that make sense. Here on our buff tuning, I can hover over any of these things and get a sense of what they actually do. If I hover over categories here, we can see it says list of categories that this commodity is a part of, used for buff removal by category. You might not know what that means, but with a lot of these Tdesc descriptions, you can kind of infer and guess what they mean. This one says used for buff removal by category. So we can guess that if the game is removing buffs based on a category, it's going to look for this category. And from that we can infer that the game will sometimes remove buffs. Say I want to remove all happy buffs, and this buff will be included in that removal. You can also hover over the green text on the right here, and it will tell you the same thing that hovering over it on the left would. If you click on any of these things, it will jump on the left to where it is so that you can quickly edit it. If I click back on categories, it takes me back to categories. This big list of stuff on the left is all the things that a buff can have in it. It's not all the things that a buff needs. A majority of buffs won't use a majority of these things, but these are all the things that a buff can actually do. A lot of them are self-explanatory, but the tooltip will try to guide you. Also, if you click on any of these, it'll open up this little box in the corner with a reminder of all the stuff it can do that you can just leave sitting here at the bottom. You can adjust the name of your tuning up at the top, which will also adjust the instance to make it unique if you're making new tuning. If you click on the pack type, you'll change the group ID, which tells the game this tuning requires this pack. If the user doesn't have a required pack, the tuning won't load for them. Look here on the mood type entry. There's some icons that are important to learn. This key icon means that this entry is required in what's called sim data, which is basically an extra file the game uses to understand how tuning is represented in the UI, I think. I'm not really sure if there's more to it than that, but the point is, if this icon is here, this tuning needs sim data if you've got any of these features enabled. Keep that in mind for now. To the right of that is a tooltip for what the entry means. The number here on the right means mood happy. So this says mood happy. Next to that, the shield tells us if this tuning is pack safe or not. This one isn't pack safe. That means that if we use something from a pack for this, like a mood only found in an expansion, this file won't work if the player doesn't have that pack. Next is create reference. If you click this, you'll create a new piece of tuning to slot into this entry. So if I click it, we'll be creating a new mood type entry. We don't want to do that, but it's useful once you know your way around making new tunings. We're working with existing tunings now, which is what the chain icon is for. It'll open up a list of things that are valid for this entry. So since this is mood type, clicking this chain will list mood types for us. So I'll open this up, and since this is for mood type, the only things listed here are mood types. If I choose a new one, such as energized, it will update on the right here to show us that now this is an energized buff. And if I scroll up to the top, that buff preview I mentioned earlier also shows that it's now an energized buff. Technically, I just made a new mod. I altered what type of mood this is, and if I were to save it as is, now when your sim gets this buff in game, it'll be energized instead of happy. Keep in mind that sometimes the options you see when you click the chain are the correct type of thing for whatever it is you're editing, but might not actually be an appropriate choice. If you open the list of tags, that includes things for colors on objects, types of skills, types of food, etc., and those aren't interchangeable. A food tag won't work right on a couch. So you do need to have some idea of what you're doing. It's not always going to hold your hand. Up here above the tuning preview, we can click Clone Document. That'll make a duplicate of the tuning we have open, which we can then rename and fiddle with. This is useful if you're making multiple things in a row that are kind of similar. To the right of that is Copy Instance ID, which will copy the number below the file name. My cat is scratching the couch. I don't know if that's audible. To the right of that is Copy Instance Reference. That's similar, but it will also copy the name of the file inside of a comment. Comments are just little bits of text that don't alter the function of your tuning, but can be used as memos. You can see comments here in the tuning already. Copy Instance Reference is useful if you're working on a lot of files at once that need to refer to each other. For example, if I click Copy Instance Reference here, now, just for an example, if I wanted to easily put that into the file somewhere, I can paste it into here, and you can see that I've got the ID and a comment with a name to remind me of what it refers to. That won't work for this mod, because this doesn't fit in this piece of tuning, but notice that the builder lets you do it. It won't stop you from doing things wrong, it will just help you do things right. So let's get that back to energized to make sure that it's doing it right. To the right of Copy Instance Reference is Copy XML, which copies the entire XML you see in the preview, in case you're making minor changes and just want to paste back into Sims 4 Studio and adjust the numbers yourself or something. The two buttons after that are to download tuning, which downloads the XML, and download sim data, which downloads the sim data. If this sim data button is highlighted, the tuning you're working on requires sim data and you will need it in your mod package. So let's say you've got a bunch of tunings open and you've edited all your stuff and you're pretty sure you're good to go. If you go to File up here at the top, you can see all the buttons we just went over, but also some new ones. Download Package will put all your currently open tunings into a package file. You can even tick which ones you do and don't want. Download Zip will zip them all up into a zip file as loose files that you can then fiddle with later or open back up with the Open Tuning button from earlier. So if I click Download Package and I name my package here, it gets put into a package file that I can put in my mods folder, and the buff that I just edited to be energized will now be energized whenever it loads up in game, and that's a functional mod. This is the bulk of the basic features from the builder, but not really in a very good mod. In the next video, I'll go over how to make a small mod using the features I just went over to modify something EA made and make it work a little differently. One thing I love about the Tdesc Builder is because it gives you so much information and structure to play with, you can learn a lot just by screwing around with it. Almost all of the modding I've done started by just screwing around in this thing. So for now, while you wait for the next video, play around and see if you can come up with something and get it working.